What are we talking about? Hello.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay, welcome to DevKami number 133. Was it 33? Yes, it's 133. My name is Sui Ming.
I am Tristan.
I'm Chilium.
So, how's everybody?
Yeah, especially after
Yeah.
Raya.
Is it true? It's full lockdown tomorrow or next week or something?
No announcement.
No announcement. There's gonna be a meeting with the Security Council, something like that.
But usually when they say there's going to be a meeting, it's almost like 90% confirmed. It's just the date when it's going to happen, right?
When they deny that there's gonna be a lockdown, there's gonna be a lockdown.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like pushed back like a few days, and then then it happens. So it's like the rumors of Apple, like these gossip. It's like, oh, they're just not confirming it, but it's actually almost confirmed it's going to happen.
Yes.
Yep.
It's one of those things. So
yep,
I think we in the industry are lucky because we can work from home, and both of us are work from home. So yes. So yeah, let's see how it goes now. So then I know I don't have my 5G modem, by the way. I think my 5G modem in my body is defective.
What? But you got a I heard you got your injection, right? So you don't need a 5G modem anymore.
Really?
Yeah. That's what they get. That's what you get for the injection, right? You're free.
Yeah, actually, 5G that's chip. True. That's true. Okay, so let's not talk nonsense now. Let's start with so there is one bad news. I forget to prepare DevKami.
Yeah, we can talk about this a bit. M5 tactic.
So let's talk about events. Next week we should have nothing.
Nothing. As usual.
Yes. The more interesting stuff will be the week after next week. So that's when
what's after next week?
Ruby Tuesday.
Okay.
In fact, it's so bad, it's getting ridiculous. I'm so sorry. So, yeah. So meanwhile, give me the links that you want to show for the bus corner. I will open some random links as well. Here's one.
Microsoft build.
So Cloudflare workers can play Doom now.
Multiplayer Doom.
So officially this is actually Turing complete setup. So yeah.
And you can play multiplayer.
Yes. I love the internet. Okay, I do not know what this means. So what you guys think?
Yeah, cool. And also exhibit the capability of WebAssembly.
Yeah, so the capability of WASM is actually pretty awesome nowadays.
Yeah, Malcolm is apparently pretty young.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So let's start with Doom is one of the earliest. It's not the first. It's one of the earlier first-person shooter. There's one before called Wolfenstein. It's from the same guys, and it's actually created by crap. The developer is very famous because of the hat, the floating point number hat.
Carmack?
Carmack, yes. Yeah. He worked on this. He is one of the key programmers in Doom and Wolfenstein. So this game is legendary because people thought that it's actually very hard to do on a PC. It's way before Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike is inspired from that.
It looks like it's actually a fake 3D.
Yes.
That's the method and some of the algorithm that he came out with pretty useful.
So when people think of first-person shooter is actually comes all the way from Wolfenstein and of course Doom.
Yeah, you can
A
say
lot of story.
it's like the ancestor of Counter-Strike.
Yes,
Well, it's Wolfenstein is more like Doom than Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike has like levels, actual
yes,
levels, like
correct.
but Wolfenstein 3D is like, how would you say? It's like 3D, but
But it's a fake 3D.
it's not really 3D. Yeah.
Yes.
it's actually a 2D plane.
So and
So
also,
even though you can shoot up, it's actually not going up.
correct. And also, last interesting stuff about Doom. There's a joke among computer engineers is that if you got a computer, you should try to port it to Doom. So as a result, Doom is actually one of the most ported game.
It runs everywhere
Around.
on like on the
Correct.
phone, on the browser, including like
Correct.
SMB.js or on your
Correct.
calculator or fridge or whatever that is, as long as there's a good enough computing power and a
Correct.
display.
So yes. So yeah, Doom is actually very cool. But so when I was young, I actually pirated it. Long story. The next one on my list. Is actually 1Password. It's not coming into Linux. Interesting to me because I'm a Linux user.
Yeah, well, it's a bit too late for them though, like because Bitwarden already ate their lunch. A lot of people, because this is for the LastPass thing. LastPass is one of the few password managers that also ran on Linux. But then
Yeah.
LastPass started charging, like forcing people to pay for that,
Yeah,
for like conveniences, and it's like everyone moved to Bitwarden because Bitwarden has Mac, Linux, and Windows support
And
plus a
also
browser.
you can self-host your server as well.
Yeah, and you can
Yes.
self-host.
correct. So yeah, but this is interesting because this is actually one of the more well-known password manager. So yes. So let's move on to the next one. Okay, this time around we had a lot of
Yep, exactly. But with a CPU, any CPU and any display.
you know what? Welcome reminds me that we should do a series on advanced project that we can do. Should we? Thinking. All right, next one. Windows 10 have built-in ransomware block. It's not on by default because the application need to access the file and directory. So you need to enable the application. If the application cannot run, so you need to actually enable it manually. So which is why I don't enable on my Windows machine yet. It's something that I may do over the weekend just because it's a good idea to have, but it won't be pain-free lah. But once you do have it, what this do is they actually protect your directory. Only allow certain permissions to actually handle write to your directories and whatnot. So it will be it will be a project on its own. But if you want to set it up, I recommend you to try it out. Anything to add? No. Okay. One thing that we really lack on engineers' mind is we don't cover Google I/O. Just a thought.
Why don't you cover Google I/O?
For some reason we just don't.
We basically don't cover any events, right?
Yeah, correct.
But there were some interesting technologies coming up from Google I/O.
So this one is this is something like Windows for subsystem for Linux, but this time on Mac. So it's set up your. I think this set up only a virtual machine, or they do a bit more. I can't tell. But yeah. So if you need it, it exists.
Yep, exactly. We talk about opinions. You know,
Talk about what?
You know, we are mainly about opinions. I mean,
Yeah,
for
correct.
Google, everybody else covers it. Yeah.
So yeah, if you need this, sure.
Hey, everybody is. We didn't say anything.
Yeah. So yeah, if you need this, it's something that you can use. To be honest, on Windows, I just use it like yeah, it's a virtual machine with a lot of optimization and seamless sharing across directory. So yeah, next. I don't know what next. Choose something else, guys.
Nothing really much in
I
interesting.
think I cover all that. So things we won't cover. Other thing that we won't cover is we won't cover the ransomware attack. It exists, it pay off, it's done. So the pipeline attack is done, and that's it.
We are not
Then
talking about Freenode. Check it out yourself.
Yeah, also Freenode, we won't do that. But for some reason, there's an Engineers Mind channel on Libera Chat. So yeah. Just because. And I think that's about it for Bus Corner.
Yeah.
So and final thing.
Yeah, and also this, we're not going to talk about cryptocurrency.
Yes, correct. Our final thing is Malcolm says that Doom is an advanced to-do list. It's beyond to-do actually. You think something like you have a hardware board. Your hardware board. One of the joke is somebody will port Doom to the hardware board.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's advanced to-do list, but
it's for anything with it's actually this day is for IoT lah.
Yeah, correct.
Small computer.
Last time they do it on Kindle and whatnot, just because
like let's say if you have a small controller with a screen, people will most likely port it Doom to it.
Yep. So and that's it. I'm going to close my other windows. I will probably create the.
So we'll move. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me move.
Yeah, we move on to our topic of today.
So the story is about.
Swimming actually worded the title a bit like why Flutter? But it's actually not why Flutter. It's actually let's talk about Flutter.
Yeah. I can say this lah. I don't hate Flutter. I don't hate.
Do you guys do mobile programming?
So I do it one time. I test Flutter one time. When I try to build, remember the kick detector?
Mm-hmm.
I was trying to build a front end to the kick detector.
You gave it up?
I will do it again later. So what happened is I tried to build everything on. I tried to do everything on Flutter, except the training of the neural network. I was hoping that somebody would. I was hoping that bringing in the TensorFlow library from Android would be easy. Turns out that it's not. So as a result, the TensorFlow part didn't work out because the creator of the library only supports something that is a bit 1 or 2 generation behind lah. So, but on the other hand, everything else worked. Meaning,
I think we've actually forgot we should have got like Excel on here so we can have more opinionated.
Yeah.
So for me, I actually do. I maintain, not just do. I had to maintain.
Yep.
As well, native mobile application, and inclusive of previously also including of some of the hybrid one like Cordova, and also React Native. And some of the project, basically the codes are, I'm not the original author lah. So that adds into the part of the experience of doing and maintaining a mobile project. So what do you guys think about it? Do you guys try? I think Swimming tried it out. Tristan, did you try it out?
No, I tried it out with I think Women Who Code had some workshops. I went with them, but I never really did my own project. So I was just following it, but they didn't really have time, and also like it's a bit difficult for me at that time.
For work, we do a lot of React Native. So one of the thing about that is that recently there's a Commbase article about them migrating native to React Native. But one of the keyword that I actually resonates with us is that if you have a small team that want rapid changes, then this kind of cross-platform development makes sense. So that is and that is I'm not sure you guys know that previously Airbnb was one of the biggest user for React Native. They moved it on for native programming. So, but the difference is that they have another issue that is coordinating the features and changes to multiple platforms. So they have a big team, I supposedly.
But the thing is, here's the thing, why? Okay, so I'm going to do a little maths. A few years back, there is jQuery Mobile, so that is focused on mobile web. So they don't work out anymore, right?
Yeah.
Then
so
after
they
that,
didn't work out anymore. You just move on.
yeah. So
It's,
then
time
after that,
change, the days of jQuery Mobile were pretty limited back then. Even like there's not.
yeah, because mobile web. Well, people use another thing for mobile web nowadays, but people nowadays aim for native, right? That's why people try. Then suddenly it's a big jump later. That then there'll be React Native.
Yeah.
React
Native.
Native.
There were a bunch in the middle, like
Really?
like the Angular one. I forgot what's the name.
Okay.
I use it, but I forgot.
Okay. So what happened to those? Seriously.
They were also like Xamarin. It's basically community. The main thing is community and support. You need a balance of corporate and community support. It's I would say it's not just Apple. Even Android is being gradually locked down these days. So I would say they are converging. Both platforms are actually converging.
And Android is, because it's under Google, they're conflicted because they want to have their web working as well.
Yeah.
So they would like
Also,
browsers, for example, to actually do that.
Also, the previous lawsuit with Java with Oracle about or about like API can be copyrighted. So that actually you can see like after that Google is moving away from Java. They didn't even update the Java support for after. I mean, of course, after the Java 8.1, then after that they just it took them a long time from 6 to 8. Then after that they just left it there, and then just recommend you like Kotlin and came up with Flutter also. I don't think it's actually I have some opinion on that. Is that the difference between a computer and also like a more open platform or open so far, like compared to web, is that we have to remember that mobile environment we have no control over that. It's always vendor lock, and we are vendor locked by two major platforms. So I think also I'm probably misquoting Axel here, but I remember one of the conversation with him is also like platforms they do regardless, they do whatever they want. So if you've spent enough time in the native programming, like it's not like if we stick with native, it doesn't change. It still change every year. So and they phase out they phase things out really quickly. Like especially if you're on the Android platform these days, is that you can see the permission system getting more fine grained. So that also came with the burden of the developer to need to update it to allow that kind of fine grained permission control, because or else the app will just fail if it doesn't regularly, like you said it once, it's gonna be safe, then the next time you cannot access the file system, then you cannot do anything. Yeah. So
This actually,
it's a lockdown. Both of them are lockdown system. They change every year. Like big changes as well.
but Nicholas was saying that maybe use Ubuntu more. But that's, believe it or not, even on the Linux side, there's some big changes. Suddenly we had a 20-30-year-old protocol, X. Now we moved to Wayland, and that actually messed up so many of the desktop environment. So now you had a new API for copy and paste and all that. The only good thing is operating system, the Unix, the Linux access is still mostly the same in a way that it's a Unix style, everything is a file thing.
Yeah.
Until somebody have fun and change the home file system.
Even the introduction of systemd also introduces quite some number of changes that behavior, actually not changes as in, but behavior they expected Linux used to behave.
Yep.
It made Linux behave a bit like a more monolithic or operating system.
Correct.
On par, similarly to Windows or something like that. It became
correct.
Everything became monolith.
Yes.
You're not talking about the architecture, but at least
core thing is mostly the same, as in file access is still an open system call and all that. It's not as high level as your mobile OS, but it's there, like it's something that is timeless, lah. And also web being mostly backward compatible is not always true.
I would say the appeal for Flutter is that it's achieved. It's actually native from Google. Of course, it's already like one of the owner of one platform. They are very nicely integrated with the existing development workflow, like Android Studio. Like the debugger, everything is even the profiler, everything is integrated. It's built. Even the programming style, for me, it's very close to the native programming style, Android programming style. But I would say, picking one of the, I don't know what is called this day cross-platform. We used to just call these things hybrid, but nowadays hybrid just mean other things. So,
but is Flutter hybrid? I think it's more native than hybrid, right?
Yep. Hi, Sumi. Yeah. Okay. Welcome back. You just push Tristan top. Yep. I would say it's the way how it works is it can be.
Swimming, I think you need earphones because it's bouncing. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Swimming muted himself. There's still a small runtime being executed. Even for React Native, there's also a small runtime being executed. But regardless, like whether we do it or not, we use this kind of a cross-platform development or not, is that because both the behavior for the both platform, they are very different. That that the knowledge of the underneath system of the, at least even though we don't do native development, we still have to learn about it, because when the, especially in deployment and when there's certain edge cases, then that it might it might involve us knowing where to look for and where to fix things. Yeah, it's like it's actually very weird. Flutter is very weird because Flutter is actually everything rendered on its own. So like if you rely on previous but the I would say let me reorganize a bit. You also you're gonna have Malcolm if then also you might have a problem with Flutter as well. We cannot escape learning about the native platform because the behavior that we have to adjust to. It in a way it's abstracted away, but underneath is still plugged to the base system or whatever library that the native plugins that you develop on. So when it doesn't work, we still have to go in to check it out. So like if you just do a bunch of forms and stuff, it doesn't matter. But if you want something more, then we still have to go back in.
If you need to use these APIs that are mobile specific or like phone specific, like the GPS, the cellular calls, camera, all of these things that are not really present much on web or not used that much on web, then it becomes an interfacing issue.
But React Native is also not that. It's just React Native is just to explain it a bit. React Native is a JavaScript call that translate the JavaScript the operation instruction to whatever that is mapped to the native one. Yeah. No, it's in a way I can say is that you put it that way, like given that you already know HTML and CSS, but you have to build a web app, right? So so these things like cost has to be taken in mind, and also recently the content policy, and also how Ajax work and those things. Those are, the underneath happening of the protocol and the protocol. So
until somebody write an abstraction library.
Yeah. That's what we call it, the opus, the opus magnum or magnum opus that everybody strive for. Yeah. So one thing also trivial is that because I also use React Native, it's not actually like doing web. It's very different. The components are actually native only, so there's no interoperability between JS and also the native version. But unless you have some JavaScript specific helper functions that you can share. But on the UI and stuff, they behave very differently. And that if you try to do more, you still have to trigger the pain point of that, unfortunately. And if I want to say, Flutter looks good as somebody who want to get started, but you still cannot avoid learning about the base system, especially on deployment, especially on iOS. You still have to go through Xcode. You cannot escape it.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? If you think, oh, I'm using Flutter, and then now I only have like this Linux or Windows machine, but you still need macOS to actually build for iOS.
Yeah, and deployment, the signing, everything. And it's been a while since I've used it, but as far as I know, for the stuff that me and the team maintaining, we still have to go through for deployment. We still have to go through the Apple environment for the Apple one. You cannot really escape it. But knowing that the platform changed very quickly, and I would say for me, it's actually comparatively, in order to scale a team of non-native programmer, to especially that for people that were not previously mobile developers, it's actually easier to scale the team with a hybrid model. And at least they can, especially most project involve tweaking UI around and stuff, like not really hard stuff, hard problems. It's just web forms. But I would say one of the downside that Flutter actually abstracted very well. It renders everything. It doesn't actually rely a bit on the native one, because everything is just rendered that, but you also lose out some of the ecosystem that this native platform had built previously, especially in terms of for my line of work, is that the amount of the maps technologies and stuff, because now in order to support it under Flutter, we have to make sure that this thing render under the Flutter engine instead of we can just cheat and use the native engine and wraps around it. Yeah, a really expert that know about things, and also to teach them about them. But I don't know. So far, people are happy with the hybrid platform that allows them to do quick changes. On the development side, Apple native is a bit more developer friendly. Well, it's my personal opinion. But on the deployment, the Android one is more friendly because you can automate it.
And you don't even need to distribute through the Play Store, right? If you're, for example, deploying to corporate and you just need to have every employee have it, you don't need to have them go to the Play Store and then download.
But you see, how Apple is actually pretty evil from the Google side is that you can see how these days a lot of things that on Android relies on GME. You need login. If you need a login, then you need a GME. So if you need like analytics, the file-based one, you're gonna make sure you have the GME. Like if you want the power saving, not hardware GPS control that can rely on the Google ecosystem, then you still need a GME. So you cannot. It's a very locked down system. They have the full control. From time to time, they deprecate stuff and they give you not really short, but
an alternative.
I cannot say, if when they introduce a new thing and they say they're gonna deprecate it, it doesn't mean that we have time to ignore it, and that means it buys us some time. Let's do it next year. No, it means that when the deadline comes, your app just won't work or won't be able to accept. Your app won't be accepted. So mobile platform itself is never stable to begin with, I would say. For those that so just pick whatever that is more productive. But do understand it's still new, so it cannot benefit from the existing ecosystem. Like even like until last year, the Google Map and the WebView plugin for Flutter just got stable just until last year, end of last year, last update. So all these things that we take for granted needs to be implemented by the Flutter community or the maintainers. All these things small things that we want. Yep. There's nothing really long term for mobile, that's why. So pick whatever that is more productive. That's my opinion for that. Because if let's say you skip 2 versions of both Android and iOS, you want to go back to it, the amount of changes are huge as well. And especially for these 2 years, the API changes are crazy, especially this day, like because they don't want the government to abuse the tracking of Bluetooth plus GPS. All these policy change are just got implemented really quickly, and if of course if you don't plan to publish it, it's fine, but no choice for iOS lah. So it's still not a platform that we have control over, and they still change a lot every year. So just pick whatever that is productive. My opinion is it's not mobile itself is never a stable platform to begin with. It's never
Well,
stable.
Go
just
mobile
be-
for everything else.
People that's
No.
why like a lot of the business like clients, they understood that they only need to pay once for the mobile development. But if they plan to use it over the years, the amount of maintenance to do every year also, like to make sure we update the package to support the latest, let's say, to make sure the Play Store and stuff accept it, and to make sure the some of the API we can benefit from some of the new API or the behavior of the OS. Like Android also recent years they did a lot of changes on the permission and also the battery policy, right? So that if you want to benefit from that, we still have to update things.
And the problem there with mobile is the device life itself is very short, like 1-2 years, and then it's not like the OS. You have to update because the OS changes because the devices changes.
Yeah.
It's not
And
like
the
it's a
behavior of
long
the OS
term.
changes as well.
Yeah, it's not like, for example, you deploy to Windows. It's a Windows application. Windows 10 has been there for like quite some time, and even if you change machines, it's still Windows 10.
Yeah,
and
and
so
it
you have a
still
very
runs
long
the-
life.
It still runs the same API
Hmm.
of it's harder, but you can still run something from Windows 98 era
Yeah.
with a compact mode and something like that.
So mobile really is a continuing thing. If you're not
And-
making money from mobile, you have to think twice.
Yeah, it's especially if you need to support the mobile in the long run. I cannot really defend like from the experiences. I cannot really defend React Native. It was pretty rough also. Upgrading was painful.
Mhm.
And also they have been issue of the maintenance and the community changing their decision every year. Like 1 year they decided that all the core libraries should be taken up as community. Then next, like this year, they just decided that it shouldn't be under the same organization. It should be spread out to all the all the individuals maintainer. And then also like the thing that I really don't like about React Native is Expo, because it's actually really nice if you want to come up with something fast to demo to the customer. But in the long run, you just lock you down to the Explore ecosystem, because the build and deployment, you have to rely on the platform itself. And when you want to switch to full native, right, it got roots into everywhere, that if you want to remove it, it's also very painful to do it. I cannot really defend React Native on that. But because we started React Native quite a few years ago, we learned this lesson and know to navigate. I think that's basically the answer for everything. Also, like we just have to try and know what to navigate.
Oh, but the thing about us is that we learn from other people's failures, right? Other people's mistakes.
Yeah, there's a lot of
So it's
failure.
good that you're sharing it,
Yeah.
because
There's a lot of
probably we're
pain.
not.
There's a lot of
We-
pain as well.
We don't want to experience that pain. So thank you for experiencing that for us, and then we're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, and
We'll
also
just,
if I want to complain, the native way of doing things, like like the criticism of the Android. I probably it's better now with Kotlin, but the previously when we had to do Android native was that like typical old school Java, where you have to write interface for this and that, then you have to write the abstract for this so that they get connected together, right? So the boilerplate were crazy as well. Yep. It's power. It's actually very powerful. We have full control over, especially we want to close full control like on bare metal and battery saving lah. But I'm not sure if you guys know that one of the edge that we use to be benefiting from native development that is that the app can run in the background.
Mhm.
But if you notice this day, there's no more background apps.
Well,
The-
it depends,
the behavior
right?
actually changed. Is that
Yeah,
now if
you have to have notification on Android 11, I think,
it's
that you
actually
are on the
a
background.
persist notification lah. That actually is actually a way to hook. I mean, for us, it's a way to hook that to allow the OS to not put the application to sleep. No, to close it up so that they can do their battery optimization lah. And also for privacy concern lah also. So these days it doesn't matter much lah. But Flutter, when I tried it, they got this kind of mechanism lah. Some kind of a pseudo background compared to React Native as a there's this kind of a pseudo background behavior also lah, which is easily done than React Native itself. But I cannot compare them both because the way of programming are very different for both.
How would you
And,
compare Dart versus Kotlin if you tried it, or Java?
I never did Kotlin. We did Java.
Well, Dart
We
is
were using Java.
somewhat inspired by Java, I think.
So,
I mean, it looks somewhat the same.
if you're coming from a TypeScript background, it shouldn't be afraid lah. So the differences are very minor lah.
I find
Especially with
that
the latest.
you tend to make a lot of pyramids with Dart, at least with the workshops that I've gone to.
Yeah. That's the same problem with React as well because of how the component how the component structure is lah. Because you want the separation of the task, right, and also the presentation. So it's actually not just a problem for Flutter, but it happens to React Native. Also, it happens to the native one also if you're not careful. So you don't want to trigger changes that actually drag the whole other layer down to re-render things lah. So haven't really done enough the new Flutter to know that. We are still evaluating that, not using for production yet.
Have you tried Capacitor instead of Flutter? So Capacitor is like this. They just released 3.0. So this is from the Ionic team.
Oh,
And
Ionic,
they
yeah, that was
are-
the Angular one.
No. This is different. The Ionic component thing.
Okay.
Capacitor is the replacement, modern replacement for Cordova or previously PhoneGap. So of course you still have it's still a web browser packaged as a native.
Not really. Because we're already on React Native lah. In terms of workspace, we're on React Native, and we know what sort of libraries to use lah, basically. But we cannot if you want to. My advice is if you're gonna start dipping into mobile, just start one first. It can be painful lah. It's painful lah to start anyway, because it feels a lot more restrictive than other ways of doing programming, because we actually it's under the mercy of the OS.
And plus you don't have, like, if you're used to web, you would be used to routing, for example. There are, like, it's quite difficult if you're bringing over routing into a native application. It's going to be a bit difficult because you actually have, like, views, pages, and all of these things. It does not map into URLs that easily.
Yeah.
So you'll have like
it's not URL.
models on top of things, and it just breaks the pages.
fun fact, do you know like most of the banking apps are Cordova?
Are they?
So
Well, I guess so because they would probably want to reuse whatever they did on web.
it's
for
not that it's
mobile.
bad lah, but it means that if you did it nice, it shouldn't matter lah. They got some of the good modules in as well for handling the security.
Yeah, well, again, if it's web, most likely they have tried it on desktop already as well. So it's battle tested on desktop, which a lot of people are using. So they just try it out again on.
I don't know. You
mobile.
can find out, Malcolm. It's not hard to check it out yourself. Ping us in the chat later after the show. Yep. Unrelated is just it's not because of platform lah. It's just sucky. If a certain service is sucky, it's because of that itself. We cannot blame it on the platform. I'm not a CMV customer, so I cannot comment.
Because those things are talking to a lot of services. So talking about stuff like my
advice for coming to web is stop treating mobile programming like web. Stop trying to find solution for, like, we're used to navigation and stuff, right? Those things.
Yeah.
So we can make them a pseudo page-like behavior, but it was never page to start with. Yeah.
And plus, I think if you are talking to too many services for your front end thing, like why don't you just have it like a single like service that abstracts all of your communication? I mean that makes it like that abstraction is also the front end for the actual services. Then that way you control it. You don't have to rely on an unreliable front end.
To do that.
Also,
that you actually raised up a good point. Is that a lot of companies, right, when they say they use this kind of hybrid, not cross-platform solution, I don't know why suddenly we cannot call hybrid anymore, because hybrid means web, right? So it's not actually web. So how they use it is also different from the conventional way where you full stack the whole thing. Like often they use this platform as like Flutter or React Native as just for the UI. They still write, like, let's say they are server communication in native. So for like also like if they need something like a background puller or something, they implement it in the native codes lah, and that and just use this thing as in a way like a scripting or an easier way to do the UI. So it's not a mutual exclusive way to do things lah. We can cherry pick.
So this kind of thing has to be organization style and all that. So something to think about.
And most often for forms it shouldn't matter.
Doing those logic in native though, like takes away the advantage of doing it in React or like in a more higher level framework, because you're supposed to be doing the higher level framework so that you can target many devices, right? Like iOS, Android, or web or something. But if you're doing most of your bulk of your logic in the native format, then that means you basically throw away the reason why you are doing cross-platform frameworks.
Well, the thing is,
it's still very native lah. Flutter, the experience for Flutter development, since we're talking Cordova, the problem with Cordova is that the entry point is we do web that we can deploy on mobile. Flutter is the development stuff is still very mobile or very UI first.
So back to what Trisha is saying, right? Why don't you suddenly just follow the best way, right? The short answer is the organization that work with often had a skill to a certain skill set, and often that means you need to have a new hire. So a good example that I like that is outside this is a lot of organizations want to do machine learning, but their organization are PHP, framework of PHP. Then the library doesn't look, and unfortunately, all these things requires library, so it get really weird really fast. It's the same for mobile actually. Suddenly you have to change your mindset. So now it's not links and navigation anymore. Navigation will be like menus and whatnot. So now you have to change your mindset and do things. Because when I worked in the bank last time, so I'm sure that bank executive had an iPhone when they first bought iPhone, they said that we can build apps on it that without realizing that the team that are inside don't have the same experience. So as a result, even you have a deadline, there's only two situations. They have deadline, use existing team, then you have everything is a nails problem.
Yeah.
Right.
The bulk of the problem of mobile is not. It's actually not on the development. It's the step to do deployment, waiting for the approval. It's not like the mindset change should be. It cannot be. Especially these days, also surprise. Google also is got pretty slower over the years. So it happens that we got patches that took a week to get approved from Google as well.
But slow in terms of approval or slow in terms
Approval.
of distribution?
Approval.
Oh, okay.
Approval. If they if you didn't approve, you cannot distribute.
But usually they have like, if you've been a regular like customer, right? Like
Yeah,
if
we're
you've been
pretty regular,
uploading
but
well,
there are still hiccups. Like COVID-19 actually affected them, affected the approval. I think because some it's still semi automated.
mhm.
So I can find out the news lah. It actually COVID-19 affected the speed to approve.
Interesting. Because I would have thought that they would at least diff
Yeah.
some stuff, and then they would know this is just a minor change, or like these are the extra API calls that were added, and this does not really like set up red flags or something.
It's also not like web where we can sneakily have something that look like it works first, then buy us some time to push
Yeah.
it out later. Is that the deadline for mobile is really a deadline? You have to count into like the first approval, especially first approval can be really slow sometimes. From Apple, might be me, but the slowest we got for the first approval was 2 weeks. So yeah,
2 weeks? Sorry, what did you say?
2 weeks for the first approval,
weeks.
for the first time it get released.
Not that bad, I think, if it's a manual review, because you have to follow a lot of rules. You can't.
It's actually not bad. It's actually not bad that
Yeah.
they actually check things out for you. Yeah, but it means that we cannot treat in terms of project timeline, we cannot treat it like web. lah. The deadline is a bit less forgiving. We have to count in onto that, and also the one problem is that it might, if it builds on your computer, it might not build on my computer. It's a very common issue, especially for iOS, because iOS when we use Coco, because iOS doesn't have a package manager, we have to link things manually. So even if you use CocoaPod, right, when you pull the library, right, when they get pulled, they actually build on our computer. So it's specific to the computer and the signing key and everything, the profile, developer profile, so that those are not the thing that we can render into the Git repo.
Yeah.
As well.
It's very different from like how you would do applications, like for example web applications or something like that. That you usually will spin up a VM so that you will run the stuff there, and
You
then
cannot
you
speed
can
up VM
transport
for
the VM around.
You cannot speed up
Yeah.
VM for Mac. You literally need a live Mac system to build.
Mhm.
And what affected us is also like we had a Mac Mini build server that Mac Mini got so old that it no longer can be our build server because
Mhm.
Xcode actually come with the OS updates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it doesn't support the new OS update, you cannot do that anymore. But
Can you do that in Flutter though? Like run, I guess, well, except for the iOS builds, you can
Can run
run
it.
Flutter stuff, for example, in CI, right, and do some testing alongside
I don't
deployment,
know
at least the
whether
first part of the submission.
mobile stuff is also very CI not friendly, my complaint.
Mhm.
The development workflow is still very. There are things to help out like Fastlane. Previously, the one that we used previously was Fastlane. It was written in Ruby. It's a tool that try to help with to make things automated and less reliant on one of the developers' computer. But it's still very painful to do. Like rendering the repository of the signing key and everything, make sure everybody has the same access.
Yeah.
But because they got the burden of the legacy of how things were done before we had this kind of CI/CD were common. It is doable. For Android, we have our CI for Android, but for the Apple one, it's just suck lah. Because regularly we have to renew the cert, which relies on human intervention anyway. To key
And I don't think you can do continuous deployment on mobile applications unless it's like Android and it's
Android
like a
doable.
corporate
Android
deployment.
doable.
Wow. Well, but you still need to get it approved, right? Can you automate the approval? The push part.
If you publish on previously, we use Fabric to distribute without Play Store, but Fabric is if you don't know, Fabric is now Firebase. There were ways to script things to submit to them. So previously, if you want the customer to access it quickly, we use Fabric to distribute. But unfortunately, the Firebase offering isn't as generous anymore than as Fabric last time. So the user count management, the tool, to script the auto deployment, everything were different.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any more questions.
Yeah, test lab is good. If you can pay also.
It's expensive. Web people are spoiled with all of the free offerings.
The complaint that we have every day is like in the office is like, why can't we automate this part? Why can't we? It's just some part it got the legacy burden of how we do things the old way, but we have the expectation that we want to do it the new way. Very different. And even if you can scale it also, like the CI/CD, we have to make sure the Android SDK is up to date. And if you really have to run the test, we have to make sure all the images are installed properly. And also images. And one of the complaint for me is that for Android emulator is the images are actually x86. I hope that the M1 can solve it, which doesn't. Sometimes your app, when we develop, we actually don't cater for them. We have to make sure it builds under x86 as well. A lot of other things that are related to the mobile deployment that we have to fix in order to. This one. Yes, we are spoiled developers.
What does it say? Apa ni semua anak free?
What is this like?
How would you translate this to English?
Everything we want free for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you should work for if your client is a startup.
No,
it
doesn't mean that
free.
it's cheap on QA It's that. I would say mobile development is for us, the mobile development team needs to be they need to be dedicated for mobile.
I would say, unlike web, where you have the freedom to choose frameworks or move around, if you're a mobile developer, let's say you're an iOS developer, you're very specialized, you know a lot, that your tools are like this, but it's very difficult to move to a different...
It's not by choice, because the platform change. People celebrate when there's a Google I/O and the Apple event, but that is the time that when everybody, mobile developer, need to read up on docs and what changed and what needs to be updated. So every time there's when something new get announced is that the mobile developer need to read it up
Yeah.
and do changes. And there's a lot of unpaid love also lah, to maintain.
Especially for Android. Android is like, I think, the one that developers need to catch up a lot on, because Google likes to move things around. At least in iOS, I think the biggest
iOS
one
as
is
well.
Swift. Well,
iOS
the
as
biggest
well.
one is Swift, but it's not that
You know-
they deprecate a lot, right?
Not just that. No, it's not necessarily deprecation, but a lot of undocumented APIs.
Yeah.
So,
A lot of like.
So it's not the it's I want to break the perception that like how we get spoiled, like everything is well documented, everything is official. That way it's still semi between. I would like to say it's a cross between, like, like sometimes hardware design and those hardware programming is that they are something close to that, but a very locked down system that change, but also there's a lot of undocumented behavior and APIs. and also like that's why like some apps they get taken out of App Store because the developer relies on some of the undocumented APIs to have the controller that to give them control over that.
But the thing is, what if they're undocumented? How did they manage to use it in the first place?
Go to forums, you will see like people talk about like, how to solve it.
And then if Apple like tries to withhold you for that app because you were using undocumented features, then
I would say
your fault, right?
Gradually this undocumented API are getting less, just like the Mac OS, is that they are gradually reserved to themselves. I mean, even the same goes with Google. There's a lot of APIs that they don't allow us to access. Like one of the things that irks me a lot is that why don't you just, Google has it, why don't you just have this fee? No, because that access is not given to the developers. Yeah. So they get, of course, in certain, whoever the host the platform has the best feature lah. Put it that way.
Yeah.
Free software,
because they have the special access API. Like let's say it's just an example, not really it's not really something new. It's like why the Apple the earplug actually has works better via Bluetooth for pairing different behavior is because they have more access lah, for themselves.
And they have whatever that chip is on the pod, like that communicates
that is not available for others.
For other devices. So that's locked down for you.
I think we have to wrap it up. In short, just do it lah. But expect that is none of the choice is gonna be easy when you first started.
Well, if you had a choice, if you're doing Cordova or Capacitor, React Native or Flutter, which would you start first?
If I'm gonna start now, even I'm telling Dev to try to learn Flutter lah.
Flutter.
Flutter.
There isn't
I have to give credit to React Native because over these 2 years they are getting more stable. Besides some of the dilly-dally of the decision of where, and it's always worth it to learn regardless.
Well, if you asked a few years ago, is it worth it to learn Angular? People have said yes.
I would say if you have an Android phone, and it's actually the experience to do Flutter is so much better than React Native in terms of the integration of the existing toolset lah. Like Android, it just works with Android Studio, and also and like all the profiler, all the tests, all the live loading, everything is just benefit from the existing tool. Basically, learning makes us a better programmer.
It's a different paradigm, a different way of thinking about your application, I think.
But
you get away
because
from
my line of work is a bit
routing.
different, so we actually take up and fix projects and stuff, not
yeah,
necessarily
and
sometimes of our choosing.
so in especially in mobile development, because you don't think about the request response anymore. You think of about long running actions. And I think this is like the difference from
And
web.
hooks,
Like,
there's a lot of hooks.
yeah.
They can get
Well,
really confusing. Like,
yeah, because with web you have like a request is done and then you don't care about what happens anymore, and then people tend to like, okay, let the garbage collector, for example, let it clear up the whole thing because the response is done. It's everything is torn down. But with mobile, you have to keep track of everything that you just instantiated because everything is still there. It's running. It's
still get
probably
GC
even
lah, but if you want the best experience, you still have to be careful about creating objects. Actually, regardless of mobile, it actually happens to TypeScript or JavaScript as well lah. So
yeah.
whenever when we allocate, it takes time, and the allocation also takes time. Yeah. So generally, it's a good advice, general programming advice. Yeah.
And if you you'll eventually, if you go for loops, for example, if you're watching something, there is a chance that you're not releasing pointers to that object, and then you'll eventually end up with like 16 gigs in that particular page. Like, what is happening? I just left this tab overnight. 16 gigs
luckily,
now.
both of them are GC. But at least the platforms, all the platforms, in a way, it's good lah. If you want to learn Flutter, is go ahead. But I'm still against using Flutter for web. I'm not a hater of Flutter, but for web, it might make sense for whatever that Flash solved many years ago, like fancy. Because for website, I'm gonna take a few more minutes lah. For website, they are normally two. I put it as two major kind of website. One is the kind of design focused fancy poster. We put it as poster lah, mainly for promotional purposes. One is one for functional thing. For me, if you want a promotional thing like nice gallery to display the product, everything, then yeah, it's not.
Also, like Google Maps, for example, something like Google Maps might be a good match for Flutter because you don't really have any like pages per se.
If
right?
but if you can port the rendering of the maps, then you get pretty rich also. Not rich lah, actually. One of the thing that one of the challenge is that the custom map rendering is beside Google Map is done by Google team, the Flutter team. But the way how everything needs to be rendered, so you cannot benefit from the existing platform. Like let's say I just want to load up a normal Google Map JavaScript on my Flutter web. Then unless you do a web view, then which is equivalent to a iframe for people that didn't know this. So then you cannot benefit from there. You cannot interrupt. Yeah, but you cannot benefit. WebGL, you can say WebGL renders the whole UI, but you cannot benefit from the Google Maps web itself. Besides iframing, web view. So you cannot benefit from other WebGL stuff that other people did besides iframing. It's not like web where we can interrupt via a new API. You lost. There are some lah, but you basically in a way lose control of the access of the underneath. It get abstracted nicely enough lah. For mobile, go ahead lah. Mobile means that you always be consistent with whatever that it render. Web is still new, and I don't know lah. Let's see how it goes. I'm still not a fan. I still prefer HTML, CSS, JavaScript. The vanilla one. The vanilla way. Yep. Anything to add, Swimming? Or else we wrap up.
No, you guys said everything. I'm a system guy.
Yep. It depends. Like that's why it depends. You ask me, like I still rely on you guys to decide. But I would say my advice is if you are interested, it's actually a pretty good platform to learn. It's pretty comparatively, the curve is not as steep as others. As long as you stay high level enough. But if you stay high level enough, play with it enough, then you actually pick your interest to explore deeper. Like just like anything, like we can start with a very high level programming language. Then when we want more, we dig and like we figure out how the CPU work and how GC work, how to optimize these things. It's just like that. Just start first. So
shall we say goodbye?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, folks. Any question, anything, just ping us on the chat channel. We're now on Telegram, Discord, and Slack and IRC.
Yeah.
Thanks, Lohan.
All right.
Oh,
then.
and we're also on Librema.
Yeah, that's IRC.
Yeah, IRC.
Chat. Yeah, IRC. Yeah.
All right then.
Bye.
So
Yeah.
let's see you guys.